Hi, welcome to another Improvement Kata deep dive with Kata School Northeast. Today, we're going to be talking about grasping the current condition. So, grasping the current condition is step 2 of the Improvement Kata and should only happen after you have fully understood your direction or challenge. Grasping the current condition is all about understanding where you are now in the context of your challenge. The current condition should represent what happened most recently, so it should be updated every day or every cycle. And there is a starter kata to help new learners go through the process of grasping their current condition. Those are the steps of process analysis. So here are each of the steps of process analysis, and they're in the form of questions to be answered. So the first question is, how is the process outcome performing over time? And this really means, what are the outcome metrics that you can measure? The second question is, what is the customer demand versus the planned cycle time? The third question or questions are, what is the typical pattern of work or your operating pattern? And what are the process measures and how are they performing? And that would be your process metrics and characteristics. The fourth question is, what are the constraints, capabilities, and capacities of the current process? And the last question is, how many people are necessary for the process to run? So we're going to do a quick overview of each of these steps and give a little context of how you might do them. So question 1 is, how is the process performing over time? And another way to think about this is, what outcome metrics can you observe in your process? So here's a hint. It's really convenient if you start with the outcome metrics from your challenge. Here are some examples of what some outcome metrics might be. So it could be parts out of a production line or exit cycles, patient lead time, customer satisfaction, or a feeling of confidence, happiness, calm, etc. So the second question in process analysis is, what is the customer demand versus the planned cycle time? One thing that you can ask yourself to start is, who are the customers and what do they need or want? For those of you in a manufacturing or healthcare or just easy to see customer flow and frequency, you can think about customer demand and frequency in terms of takt time. But otherwise, when you think about customers, it's really just about, what do they need and want from the process and the challenge that you are working on. Next, you want to consider, what can your process currently do? One way to visualize that is to look at a stacked bar chart comparing how your process currently performs to that customer demand and frequency. The next question is, what is the typical pattern of work? And in this situation, you want to draw how the work happens in a block diagram. So here's an example of a block diagram for making a cup of tea. So each process step is listed out next to each other, and they each have the time associated and the total time for the cycle. Now, in order to build a block diagram, it's really important that you go and see the actual process and videotape it if you need to. That way, you can always go back and watch it even more and really understand each step and the time associated. This is also helpful if the process is very fast and hard to observe in real time. The next question in process analysis is, what are the process measures and how are they performing? So we're going to go back to the block diagram. And in this situation, you want to ask, what can you measure during the process that leads to that outcome measure or measures from your challenge and from step 1 of process analysis? Another way to think about this is, what are the leading indicators that you can see in the process that will impact your outcome measure? So for our cup of tea example, if our outcome metric is the quality of the cup of tea, some potential process metrics may be the volume of water in the kettle, the amount of sugar used, and the steep time of the tea. All three of those may impact the quality of the cup of tea as our outcome metric. Next, you want to answer what are the constraints, capabilities, and capacities of the current process. What this is really asking is what can your equipment or resources, et cetera, currently accomplish or not accomplish? So going back to our tea example, my constraints may be that I only have one kettle and that my stove high setting can only put out a certain amount of heat. Next up is to answer how many people are necessary for the process to run. So this is where you can calculate or determine the number of people needed. If you have a process that has concrete process time and takt time, then it's easy to calculate the number of people needed by just dividing the two. If, however, you have a process like making a cup of tea that is not as easy to calculate, you can essentially just determine how many people do you need to run that process. So for making a cup of tea, I really only need one person. However, if I had more, that would probably just be more of a hassle and get in the way in my kitchen for making a cup of tea. And that's all of the steps for process analysis, which is again the starter kata for grasping the current condition. Now, here are a few tips for those who are newer to grasping the current condition. It's really important to not make changes while you're observing your current condition. And this is really difficult because as you start to observe, you will see things and opportunities that you want to go improve in your process. But it's very important that you just observe and take your current condition for what it is. The next thing is that the process of grasping the current condition will take several days to complete. And this will feel uncomfortable and like you aren't progressing fast enough. That's okay. Part of grasping the current condition is that it does take time to make sure that you understand what's currently happening so that you can move on to the other steps of the improvement kata effectively. So if you're feeling like this, don't worry, you're not alone. Every learner who goes through this feels this way, and that's normal and actually a good thing. And the last thing is that this is a judgment-free zone. While you're grasping the current condition, it's really important to not judge your current process. It is what it is, and that's the point, is to understand what's really happening right now. So thank you for watching. If you're interested in learning more about a particular step of process analysis, check out our videos that dive deeper into each step. And if you'd like to join us for our live workshops, please email us at kmallory@kataschoolnortheast.org and check us out on LinkedIn. Thank you so much.